Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. After an unusual 2 days off, Sunday and Monday, those are usually our first 2 days of the work week. But after last week's 8 days in a row of going at it, we took a break and now we are back. So we hope you had a nice weekend. Hope you got to enjoy some of the winter scenery that's around out there because there's plenty of it. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. They were busy, of course, through this winter storm, and you can expect them to be busy again come Friday. Maybe in a different sort of way because it'll be more icing for them than anything else. But nonetheless, might need more rock salt, and they've got the largest supply of rock salt anywhere in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri state area. We're also looking at sand, Pelado, mag, ice, pellets, and flakes. And then, so make sure you head over to Omni at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. Uh, that's 6317 And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So hold on, I got to get Mr. Rayo in here. And he's coming in. And so are we. So he should be on the screen momentarily. And there you go. How are you, Joe?
Hello.
Hi, we're on the air. We're on the air. Did you have a nice couple of days
We're on
off?
the.
Did you relax? Did you plow yourself out of existence for your less than 4 inches that you got up in Putnam Valley and just took it easy?
Basically, yeah. Last couple of days of yesterday was kind of busy for me, and it was a busy day today. Today, in fact, I spent most of my day in this room. So here I am back again for another round of questions and comments and
And all
frustration
so,
about.
and all sorts of
I mean,
mayhem.
why did the J? I mean, why did the GFS go 15 to 20 inches for me? I mean, why?
Well, look, here's how I kind of look at it. Actually, before we even do that, I want to address something. There is a little notification there that I've pinned on the top of the chat board, and I neglected to say anything over the last several days because of what was happening last week with the storm. But if you haven't read it, you need to read it. Please, no political discussions during the show. If you want to, I don't know why you would want to come on a Weather Channel to talk politics at all. You talk the niceties that people usually talk left and right, but I don't understand the whole concept of getting involved in political conversations. But you're not going to do it during the show. And I watched it happen last week. There was bullying going on, and that's completely unacceptable unless you want this channel to disappear, because that's what will happen if that continues. And I won't be the one to make it disappear. YouTube will make it disappear, and then it won't come back. So under no circumstances is there be any bullying. The moderators are watching. You'll get one warning. If you don't stop, you're off the channel. You will be banned for life, and you can appeal to me as much as you like. I do not appeal to you. You under, as the old Abbott and Costello joke goes. But you get the message, folks. I don't want that kind of nonsense over here. This is supposed to be a place where we come and get away from all the nasty stuff of the day to relax a little bit. And also, just out of respect, I think it's probably inappropriate. Actually, I think it's inappropriate to be discussing other forecasters and what they're forecasting on this board, and also making comments regarding whatever their qualifications happen to be. We respect everybody that does weather and does it well. And I really don't want it. I really would not want to see um, that continue. So if you're putting up, what other forecasters are saying, they're not here to verify what you're translating. So knock that off as well. Okay, end of PSA. I've been wanting to do that for
End of rant.
yeah. I going back to last week. I I always know when the forecast works out right because you anger both sides equally. Okay, you anger the snow weenies, and at the same time you anger those who really don't pay any. They're really out there just to troll you. You get them all worked up. So when you anger both sides, that's when you know that whatever you did is probably correct. So yeah, I think all in all, the forecasts that we tried to come up with the best we could, I think we did a decent job. And now we move on to the next one, which is going to be, I said to somebody, they asked me about my hair turning. Has your hair turned gray yet? And I said, no, it's gone from gray to white, and now it's transparent with what's going on this week. I don't know, Joe. I'm having a real difficult time with whatever's going to be going on over the next couple of days. I think a big, any kind of sizable ice storm seems to be off the table, in my view. Uh, but anytime I see a big high up to the north, I get very nervous. And I'm not talking about snow here because snow is not an issue. I've got some soundings that I'll bring up in a little while that'll show that. But I'm not discounting what the GFS is doing with draining all that cold air as far south as it is, because that's a cold high to the north, and that's another setup with that northerly wind, that north-northeast wind coming down from eastern Canada. So I got my eyes on that. That's what I'm focusing on with this for tomorrow night and Friday.
I don't know about you. Well, tomorrow night is Wednesday, so you're
I'm
jumping.
sorry, Thursday night and Friday.
Tomorrow night and Wednesday.
Thursday night and Friday.
I don't know, Joe. We're already into the first day of February, and I'm already February weary.
Yes, exactly.
And after what I don't know about you, but after what I went through last week with the storm that hit us over the weekend, and now we have another event coming our way for Thursday night and Friday, and I'll tell you what I did last week. I mean, there was one guy who was just sarcastic in his comments, and it was the very first time that I ever actually got to the point where I got so fed up I blocked him. I know you've done that more than a few times, but I try not to do that. I'm trying to be the nice guy, and I try to smile and say, all right, but I blocked him. Another person, I put up only 2 snow maps last week, and after the second snow map, where basically I doubled the values of the first snow map, that still wasn't good enough. There's one person who kept, I'll say even just berating me and actually lecturing me as to how to forecast a snow situation or a winter storm situation.
Oh yeah,
and finally,
I get that all the time.
And so what I did was, instead of going private with him and just messaging him privately, I just put up on my Facebook page. I said, hey, look. He said, it's obvious that you have all the answers. It's obvious no matter what I do, you've got it all figured out. Yes, I said, and I've only been a professional meteorologist for 44 years.
Right, but what do you know?
I have a BS in Earth and Planetary Science. I said, what are your qualifications? Well, after the storm was over, and I think, like, for example, here at Putnam Valley, I said 4 to 8 inches. We got 4. I was at the bottom of my range. The 4 was also at the top of the range in the first map. But basically, I think I got within the ranges of all the places except maybe out east where everything went bazonkers.
You did fine.
I mean, that's the way. That's it. But the guy who who was like lambasting me or whatever, and I lambasted him. He comes back and then he personally sends me a message on Messenger saying, look, I wasn't going against your qualifications. I have only the highest respect for you and your forecast, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm saying, really?
Yeah, okay.
I said, really? You sure made it sound like, yeah, exactly.
Well,
and now with this coming up this weekend, or this actually Thursday night and Friday, I'm saying, oh, no. I said, I don't want to go back into Troll City again, but it looks like that's going to be the case. I don't want to put up another snow map. I just want to go straight to spring. But
yeah, I usually, if I block people, I block them on their birthdays. It's far more effective. But I have little patience for people who make it so obvious that, and Joe, you see what I put up, and those of you who follow me, I do website posts, videos, and all the rest of it. Um, it's so clear to me when someone doesn't even read what you write, or they look at you when you put up a link, you get the graphic that you set for it comes up and the graphic. They'll see the graphic and they'll react to something off the graphic that needs further explanation in the website post. It just becomes so clear that they haven't read it, and they start to troll and they say nasty stuff. I've got no patience with them. I've done, I do the passive aggressive route, which is I applaud you for what you did because it was passive aggressive. I say, my weather page simply isn't for you. There are so many weather pages out there that are far better than mine and could speak to you at your level. You should go there. Okay, I'll give you a list. I will give you a list. Uh, and then my other approach sometimes, depending on how I feel, is I just I rip them a new what, and just kind of go from there. So anyhow, it, I,
Well, I mean, like you say with the map, we spend so much time and painstaking time on trying to get the map correct. I do a map, and then I get more than a few people who say, Joe, what does this mean for me? What do you think for Yonkers? Joe, I live in New Rochelle. Tell me what this map means. And it only goes back to what I read a long time ago. Geography was probably the weakest subject for most Americans. Most Americans simply do not know how to read a map, for God's sake. And so when you put a map up, a snow map up, and like a good number, not the majority, but a good number of people come back to you and say, "Well, Joe, what does this mean? What am I going to get?" I say to myself, I said, "Why am I even bothering to do this? Why am I even attempting this if so many people out there don't understand what the heck the map means?" So
no, they're lazy,
anyway,
Joe.
we
They're lazy. That's what it is. They're lazy. I put up I put up all sorts of maps. I put up every National Weather Service snow forecast map on my weather app. Okay, from Maine to Georgia is on there, but they're just lazy or lonely and they want to make conversation. But uh, you put it on all this work, the maps are there. They don't want to be bothered to click on the link and go look at the map. So they ask for a zip code forecast. I don't do zip code forecasts. If you want a zip code forecast, we can talk about how much you're going to pay me to give you a zip code forecast because I'm not doing it for free.
right.
And that's it. Um, I'm out of brownie brittle. I have to buy more brownie brittle. I'm low on coffee. I've got to restock my fridge. I got the same bills everybody has, and I'm not going to zip code forecast for you. Uh, yeah, it's just pure laziness, and I have no use for those. I just ignore those. So anyhow, let's uh, let's move on. We've got a nice crowd on tonight. I'm sure they're interested in what's going on across a large part of the U.S., the eastern half of the United States, or even more, a little more than the eastern half of the United States, is going to be dealing with uh, a double punch from two separate waves coming back to back in from the middle Mississippi, from Texas all the way up into upstate New York. And we've got a slew, Joe, a cornucopia, a lot. Um, Joe Rayo, by the way, is monitoring the chat board, and he's monitoring how many likes we have, and we seem to have a lot already. So we love it when you hit the like button. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And this way, you'll get notified every time we do the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is 5 days a week, usually Sunday through Thursday. Although, as I said earlier, the snowstorm of last week kind of shifted everything. So, because we like to take 2 days off to recharge our batteries, usually it's Friday and Saturday. At this time around, it was Sunday and Monday. So, anyhow, New Mexico, eastern Colorado, some winter storm warnings. with a mix of winter weather advisories. We have the winter storm warnings going down into West Texas. Then to the east of that, there are advisories up. Then we go to winter storm warnings again, and I think that really has to do with the fact that a lot of what's going to happen in Texas is ice and ice accretion. Oklahoma, virtually the whole state under a winter storm warning, as is southern Kansas. Almost all of Missouri. And by the way, we do have winter storm watches up for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that's that area in blue in north central and northeast Texas. Central Arkansas, western Tennessee, little stripe there with a few counties under winter storm watches with warnings to the north. Warnings in northwestern Kentucky, Illinois, up to Chicago and including Chicago, Indiana, Detroit, northwest Ohio. Watches from northeastern Kentucky. The rest of Ohio, western PA, western north central and northern New York, also Vermont except the extreme south, New Hampshire except the extreme south, and of course the entire state, the entire great state, Joe, the great state of Maine under a winter storm watch. So that covers a lot of geography here, and I think I saved it. Let me bring this up. Where is it? So I have the ice accretion map, and this is early because it just went up. So some initial numbers from local weather service offices we're looking at for the area from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Most ice accretion amounts of under a tenth of an inch. Now, I was more concerned earlier this week that this was going to wind up being something bigger, and I think these numbers are going to come up, but I don't think they're going to go up crazy. Okay, the big numbers are out to the west, and bear in mind that a lot of the places that we go out, that as we move out to the west, that are going to be getting these the ice before it snows, so they're going to get freezing rain and then snow on top of it. We're starting to get into quarter inch amounts, third of an inch, almost half an inch in parts of northern Kentucky. And going further west, we're actually seeing some numbers greater than a half an inch down in parts of Arkansas. And then further west, also into Oklahoma, we are seeing some big numbers as far as ice accretion is concerned. And I don't know, excuse me, Joe, while this map finishes loading here, I don't know about you. Well, I know you will agree with me on this. I have been saying from the onset that this is something that no one roots for. I mean, snow is one thing because people like snow, and I get that. Once upon a time, actually, I still am. I know, I don't, Joe. I think deep down inside you are too. But once upon a time, we were avid snow lovers until we had to do it professionally and had to drive in all these storms. But nobody wants an ice storm. Nobody. Ice is evil. It's destructive. And this is a forecast that I wish would not verify or come even close to verifying. We can only hope that these numbers are way overdone. I have a feeling they're not, but we can only hope.
Well, yeah, it. I was just hoping for a nice cold front to move on through and a quick changeover from a rainy Thursday to maybe a little bit of ice or snow on the tail end on Friday. But the problem is it's such a heavy and cold air mass, and the front itself is going to be a very slow mover. You have to always worry about the possibility of a little ripple or a couple of ripples of low pressure moving along the front, which could only accentuate the amount of precipitation that falls. And if it falls into that very cold air, then we've got a problem. I mean, it's not just a matter on Friday. It's not going to be a case of, oh, well, a little bit of snow or ice in the morning and then clearing in the afternoon. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. It looks like we're going to have an entire day's worth of something out there. And if it does have to be frozen, I certainly hope that we can make the transition from ice to snow fairly quickly, because if it's a prolonged period of ice, we is in big trouble.
Well, and also at the end of the day, at the end of the day when precip starts to come to an end and we go into Friday night and Saturday, we're going to be down in the teens to around 20 in many areas Saturday morning. So it's not as if the stuff's just going to disappear. It's going to freeze anyhow. even regardless. So yeah, I agree. My big fear is it's the height of the north that really kind of is the wild card here. Uh, because you and I in our well, let me hold that thought for a moment. Let me just get the snow map done.
I'm searching. By the way, Joe, I'm searching for a book so that relates to this, and I'm just trying to find it. So
Okay,
if you don't see me in my chair, you'll know what I'm doing.
okay. Snowfall forecast for much of this area. This is going to be St. Louis's turn with a foot of snow being forecast there. Kansas City anywhere between 6 and 8 inches of snow after losing that football game to the Bengals. And going on right, and then going on to the north and east of Chicago, north of Chicago, they're forecasting 6. On the Indiana side, 14, and Chicago looks like it's sitting somewhere between 6 and 10 when this is all said and done. Detroit, I know we have a couple of folks that watch from that area in Detroit, and it's been a long time since they've gotten a sizable snowfall. Well, this looks like it might put down up to a foot in Detroit. Cleveland, 10 inches. Indianapolis, 10 inches. The bullseye spot, the jackpot zone, is going to be central Illinois. And in through central Indiana, where there will be some amounts of 14 to 15 inches. Further west, we're looking at 4 to 6 inches across Kansas, anywhere from 3 to 6 inches, actually even a little higher than that in parts of Oklahoma. The numbers tail down a bit as you go into Texas, but even around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they're forecasting for 2 inches of snow and some ice on top of that. So a general 1 to 4 inch snowfall for central and west Texas. And then you see some of these bigger amounts in the mountains of New Mexico and going north in through Colorado along and west of Denver, where the amounts the lower elevations getting 5 to maybe 7 or 8 inches, and then higher amounts, obviously, as you go up. There's a 20-inch bullseye there down in southern Colorado near the New Mexico border. And as we move this along, now this is ending 7 p.m. Friday, so this pretty much covers it all. Potentially another big snowfall for Buffalo. This will be the second one in less than a month where they could get up to a foot. Not getting a lot of lake effect snows going on over there, but they're certainly getting snows from either storms or, in this case, this
Some of their
massive.
biggest storms. This is very unusual. Some of their biggest storms this winter have not been from lake effect. They have been from synoptically induced snowfalls where they've had, like, for example, the snow we had a couple of weeks ago that changed to rain. They were close into that storm and they got something like 15 inches of snow, not again from lake effect, but just simply for the fact that they were so close to the storm track. And it's been an unusual winter for them because you're right. Usually that by now they've had more than a few lake effect storms, and they've had more synoptic storms than lake effect storms this year, I think.
Yeah, Justin Vale says Lake Erie is covered in ice, not completely, but pretty good nonetheless. Yeah, we're at the time of year now. It has been cold this month of January, below average, and in some places by a sizable number. So I would suspect that much of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario probably frozen, and that of course cuts down on the lake effect potential. The snow amounts also of 8, 9, 10 inches. You go up to Rochester, Syracuse. They're going for 9 in Rochester, 10 in Syracuse. The Weather Service offices there. Northern New York, northeastern New York, anywhere from 10 to 12, maybe some isolated higher amounts here and there. Same for Vermont, except for the extreme south. There's a sharp cutoff, by the way. You'll notice there's a very sharp northeast southwest cutoff. And if you want to find the average position of the cold front, just kind of maybe go into the zone where you just see 1 to 2 inches and then just follow the border of that 5-inch line, and that's kind of where your frontal boundary is initially setting up. One of the things that's happening is that the frontal boundary is actually going to be sinking southeast while each wave goes by, and there's at least 2 of them, and then there's a third one that forms. These are not big storms. They're not storms that are intensifying into major storms here, like the one we had, where we see rapid deepening and pressure falling rapidly and get down to a 970 something low. No, this is just basically a front with little flat waves moving along it, a strong, warm southwest flow aloft, and bitter cold air coming down out of Canada at the surface. and you've got a perfect setup for this sort of overrunning precipitation that's going to run from west to east. If you look at the satellite signature, you'll notice we're not really seeing any kind of twists. There's like little kinks in there, little twists, but there's no big swirl like you would see in a big storm. This is again, it's just massive overrunning. And you could get Joe. We've had overrunning events. I kind of had a flashback today to 93, 94 because it was right around this time in the
Oh,
calendar that we had and it was when I got to witness for the first time freezing rain at a temperature of 12 at
yeah.
my house on Long Island, and we had snow that changed over to sleet, and we had snow that changed over. And I think it was maybe about half a foot of snow. Then it changed over to sleet, and then it went over to freezing rain, and it was 12 above. And I'm seeing rain. I'm feeling raindrops come down. I've never seen anything quite like that. And then 3 days later, we had a system that's popped up at the last minute. I've always regarded that as my forecasting coup because while this storm was just kind of winding down, I went on the air and said, "Guess what? Here comes the next one, and this one could be even, produce even more snow."
I
And
remember that.
yeah, and no
I'm,
one,
that second storm. That second storm was a Friday. Was a Friday storm
yes,
whereas the one that the first one was like a Wednesday. Yeah, I remember that. It was like a 2-for-1 sale.
yeah, I remember I remember getting I remember getting I think it was the Ada then. I remember getting the Ada coming off the machine and looking at it and right before I went on the air and the Ada all of a sudden showed us getting well over an inch of liquid. And I was like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" And I went with it. I just went with it, and it worked out because we wound up with a solid foot of snow. It was another one of these. That was a winter too where we had a lot of these types of overrunning cases. We didn't really have big developing storms, just a lot of overrunning 1012, 1008 lows on stationary fronts that were all stalling out to our south and cold air in the right place. It was like a bowling alley from the end of January till the middle of March. It was one after another after another. I think we wound up with like 15 or 16 of them in a row in terms of events. Most of them were small,
That was
but
a brutal.
yeah, that was
That was a
tough.
brutal winter. 93, 94. That was the year I remember a lot of ice and that one
Yes.
double storm in February around. I think it was around the 11th or 12th of February in 94. And yeah, that was a rough winter. And
It really was.
yeah, this kind of brings back this impending scenario kind of brings back the pangs of. But you know what, Joe? You were right a few moments ago. I mean, like we were into this kind of weather back then. This is what now we're talking about an event that took place 28 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference now is that neither you nor I need to worry about getting into work and and having to deal with that in that regard or that manner. We can just sit back. Well, you're not in the line of fire really for this one, but well, or are
No,
you? I
no,
guess
no. I'm not
no.
getting anything out of this. I actually have to deal with heavy rain at when the frontal boundary moves on through. Maybe a rumble or two of thunder. Got to 52 today after a low of 21 this morning. So that, I'm pretty good about that. I don't want another 11-degree morning like I had the other morning. So,
Yeah.
any that was not good. That was not fun. I know you've had
And
a
I thought
bunch of
this month,
those.
Joe. But Joe, I thought the Climate Prediction Center, I'm not taking a shot now at them because they're the division of NOAA that relies heavily on making long-term or long-range predictions. But we were all looking forward to the big pattern change in February of much milder temperatures, warmer temperatures, the ridge building back up, and I see no sign of that. What I do see is another round of wintry weather coming just days after a big snowfall here in the Northeast. So what happened?
Yeah, when we talk about the long range later on, they're we're gonna have chances. There are gonna be more chances along the way, and they may not necessarily be obvious ones. They might be hidden a little bit, but overall, I think we're gonna have some chances, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Meanwhile, the first of two waves is setting up now, and you can see all that precip. This radar about 6 hours ago, when I did Weather in 5, which was at a little after about 12 noon today, had very little on it, but the radar now has blossomed out. As that Gulf moisture has gotten involved, and you see all that precip up in Missouri, on into Illinois and into the lower lakes. Much of that is actually snow. And where it's not snow, it'll probably change over to snow as that colder air pushes southward. We've got rain showers down further south in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. That'll change over as well. And you're seeing snow up in North Texas, in Colorado right now. There's a nice patch there on the radar, pretty solid looking area here, sitting right over Denver. I mean, it looks like there might be some heavier snow, a little heavy snow band there east of Denver, or if it's not heavy, it's certainly moderate. And another one up at the Wyoming state line. And here in Missouri, as we head over, there's precip, some heavier precip. They must be on the border here getting ice in central Missouri from St. Louis on south and west. So this radar is just going to continue to load up, and all of that is moving to the northeast toward into Michigan. So folks in Detroit, just be a little patient. It'll be there soon. Just getting in there in Chicago. Actually, it's been there for a while. There's some heavier bands down to the south. By the way, if you on the chat board, we've got a nice crowd tonight watching, which is wonderful. And if you've got any questions, Joe's watching the chat board, so be sure to put your questions up there. If you like the show, hit the like button, because Joe and I love it when people hit the like button. It makes us feel loved. Let's put it that way.
I have to apologize, because I was trying to find a book by David Ludlam. I couldn't, and I wasn't keeping my eye on the chat board. And I do know, Joe, that we had several people hit the super chat list, and now that I'm backing up all the way, they are no longer available to me on the chat board. So if you did hit super chat, and I know that a few of you did, we thank you in advance, or thank you.
I know David
in the aftermath.
I know David Fuller did. I did see that David Fuller hit the
Okay.
hit super chat. So thank you, David. Most appreciated. Yeah, I kind of lost it too, with regards to who else. I'll see if I can try to bring it up on one of my other screens. In the meantime, I've got a few WPC maps to look at. This is the probability of at least 2 inches going, and this ends. This actually ends Friday evening, 0Z Saturday. So that's at 7 o'clock Friday evening. And you notice that the southern edge of 1%, which is in the brown.
Oh, God bless you. The executive producer just handed me. leave it to my wife, who's taking note here.
I know.
David Fuller, Lou Garu.
I believe so.
Trish Sparaccio.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And Dave Vazino. These are all relatively new people. Again, we thank you for your super chat hits. And again, I thank my wife, who is watching from upstairs on her iPad and is always taking note of these, because she knows that sometimes her husband is incompetent and does not take proper notes as to who is making comments on what. And she came running downstairs, handed me this little Post-it here with these names. And again, we thank David, Lou, Trish, and Dave for hitting super chats. And if there are any more to come, I'll be sure to keep my eye on the chat board.
That was Joe. That was one of those this just in moments. So obviously this is not a snow case here, so we can get that out of the equation. Maybe it changes over before it ends. Maybe we get some accumulation, but it's going to be under 2 inches if it is. And I'm not forecasting that part of that angle of it. I'm not paying really too much attention to it, because I think the freezing rain is obviously front and center. But I'm going to bring up the probability of 12, because there is a high probability of at least 12 inches in a stretch here. And if we use, I always like to use not the darkest blue, but the the next shade. That's the 50% line, because I think that usually is a pretty good bet that you're going to get 12. If you used it in the storm that we just had here in our area up the coastal plain, uh, you would have gotten it. You would have certainly gotten it as far as the 1 foot plus. It played out very, very well. WPC did a very good job. Now, in the long range, this is for the period. I think they might have redone this. This first one. All right. So this first map is Friday into Saturday, but that's on the other one now. So I really don't think that's valid. So after that, the next period is Saturday into Sunday, and obviously, well, there's nothing. Sunday into Monday, and this is off if you looked far enough in the guidance. All the models have a low developing off the Florida Georgia coast during the Saturday night, and the GFS was the only one that brought it up the coast today and actually brought it up quite vigorously. But on the in-between run, it joined the others and took it out to the east and kept it offshore, which we want we want that to happen. We want that to go out and be offshore because we don't need another one so soon. And by the way, Eric P. Hitting super chat. Thank you, Eric. We love these shows and all the great Patreon content. Thank you so much for being on the Patreon platform. I've been doing a lot over there, including extra videos through all this storm coverage, and it's kept me very busy. And I like that because it's when you got to sit around and write about sunny skies for the next 3 days. That's not really very exciting. Now, this map is the probability of ice. This is the probability of freezing rain accumulating, and I have it set to 1/10 of an inch. And this was updated late this afternoon by WPC. And you'll notice that for much of Pennsylvania, the probabilities are at least 30% or higher. And you've got a big area there in central PA and also in northeastern PA where there's a 40 to 50 or even 60% chance of it being verifying, and the 20 to 30% line, and this ends Saturday evening, goes just to about New York City. Now they beefed it up because earlier today they only had it down at about 5%. So now they've beefed it up a little bit. They might have looked at maybe put a little bit of the GFS in this because that model has been absolutely persistent for about 5 days now with regards to showing much more cold air draining southward down into the eastern part of the United States. And I think this at least is a fair forecast to start off with. I think we're probably going to see some adjustments in the next 2 days as far as the percentages from WPC. And further south and west, Joe, some really big amounts here. A 95% probability of at least 1/10 of an inch. I'll switch it over to a quarter for the folks in Missouri, Indiana, southeast Missouri, that corner there of Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Illinois. Those 5 states are in that max area there for a probability of at least 1/4 of an inch of ice accretion. And the percentages go up to between 70 and 80%. So this strip here of 50 to 60% or higher is probably going to be the zone that shows up in the news when this is all said and done.
I think that looking at this from the overview for the next 2 or 3 days, this is probably going to be, when it's all over said and done, the most significant or most widespread. Admittedly, the storm we had over the weekend did a number on us, but it really did a number on New England with over 2 feet of snow in some places like the Boston area or whatever. But when you wrap everything up into one big ball here, this particular setup, and it's not even a storm, Joe. It more or less is just a cold front, a wave of unusually cold air, which is managing to produce quite a bit of measurable precipitation and mixing it in with that push of colder air. This is going to probably going to affect maybe 1/3 of the country. We're talking about maybe like 100 million people before this is all said and done. So this could very well be, even though it's not really a storm per se, this may very well be the most significant winter system that we have seen so far. It's like, well, we often kid, and we mentioned it, I think, just last week, the 2,000-mile warm front. Remember that? But this is a warm front, but this is a frontal line of significant length that is going to set the stage for bringing a wide swath of snow, ice, rain to a broad area, all the way from the desert Southwest all the way up into the Northeast.
Yeah, I just widened it out. I mean, that's the freezing rain profile. I mean, that's huge. Uh, that's huge. And we're going through cities like Dallas, Fort Worth, St. Louis. Uh, as far as the icing is concerned, Louisville, Cincinnati, just south near Pittsburgh, all involved these are all going to be involved in some form of icing. And if we go back to the snow map, in terms of I'll lower the probability a little bit so we could just to cover a greater geography here. But you can see on the snow map, as Joe described, we're going through a very, very large area. Definitely in terms of impact, Joe, in terms of square miles, in terms of number of people being affected by this. It's probably it's bigger than what we just experienced. We got the Northeast down from Delaware to Maine. It was the coastal areas, the coastal counties that got clobbered. The inland counties did not and got far less. This is going to be much more widespread. You see the northern border of it, the southern border of it. Again, this is the probability of at least 8. So near high probabilities at St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, back just Kansas City on the edge, going south and west, and of course down in Texas, the bigger story is going to be ice there. And we'll see if this winds up being the one that has the most impact overall for the winter season, because we still got a ways to go yet.
I just, as you were talking, Joe, and this is something that goes back to last week, and when we were talking to Bill Goodman about this, I was just curious. I had not yet seen what our weather service, the National Weather Service forecast office in Upton, had suggested for Thursday night or Friday, nor Albany. Albany apparently has. I saw that they had updated their forecast at 3:30, and then they just updated again about 6:45. But would you believe that the folks over at Eastern Long Island have not put out a new forecast since 2:17 this afternoon? I mean, that's
really.
I mean, I don't even think that what they have now on that particular forecast really. I mean, you would think that considering the potential for ice or snow, whatever like that, that they would have updated by then, but they still have the forecast from 2:17. They're still saying rest of today, for goodness sake.
Oh no, they must be having maybe they're having that same technical glitch that they had the other day.
Maybe right, when they didn't update then until like 6:30, but now here it is.
I was wondering because I spoke to Bill Goodman this afternoon, and I was going to ask him, and then I got distracted and I forgot. So I read the discussion. I read the area forecast discussion that somebody wrote. It wasn't him, but somebody wrote around 1 o'clock. And the long range part of it, which when they say long range in that, they were not the long range, but the second half of the forecast period, which would cover the icing potential. They were talking off the 0Z guidance, and I thought that's strange. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You should have seen a good chunk of the 12. So the 12Z guidance. Why would you still be talking about the 0? And now, of course, you telling me this sort of explains it. They maybe
I'm looking here
had a technical glitch after that.
I'm looking at Putnam, the forecast from my area, Putnam County, and I'm looking for what they said. Thursday night, they just said rain.
Right.
Okay, they have rain, but the low temperature for Thursday night is in the upper 20s. But they're just going for plain rain.
Yeah.
And now for Friday. And Friday, the forecast is for freezing rain and rain in the morning, and then a chance of freezing rain and sleet in the afternoon. And this is the thing that opens my eyes wide. And this is why, people who listen to radio stations, for example, read the official weather forecast from the National Weather Service, they're going to say to themselves, no big deal, because the forecast for Friday little or no sleet accumulation. It's
No, those
I mean,
digital,
I'm boggled.
they put the they put the numbers, they basically punch the numbers in, and then the computer sort of writes the forecast in a sense. Yeah, I love when they say, rain from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., then a chance of rain from
Yeah.
7 p.m. to 8 p.m., then a chance of showers from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., then clear skies from 9. It's like, can you just stop already? Just say, just do it the old-fashioned way. Sunny today, high mid 80s. Clear tonight, low mid 60s. Nick Charles in
Now,
touch.
just north of me is Dutchess County, and the biggest city to the north of me is Poughkeepsie. I'm
Right.
looking at the forecast. Now this forecast by the Albany Weather Service, National Weather Service, was put out at 6:34 this evening, and I know it was the second update because they had a previous one at 3:30. So they're saying rain or sleet in the evening, then freezing rain after midnight, little or no sleet accumulation. And then Friday, freezing rain mainly in the morning, colder with near steady temperatures in the upper 20s. But they're also saying that they don't mention anything about any kind of significant little or no sleet accumulation. So if I'm looking at one forecast for the Putnam County area, it's rain, not anything else overnight on Thursday night, with temperatures below freezing, and then on Friday, some rain mixed with a little bit of sleet, no accumulation. And the same thing is for Albany. Albany is saying little or no sleet accumulation. Meanwhile, from what I've been looking at and what we've been talking about now for the better part of the last 45 minutes, we're warning people that there could be a tough, rough morning here on Friday morning or even late Thursday night because of ice and sleet. But yet there's no indication of that from the official
Yeah,
forecast. And I'm just, I
yeah,
don't know.
there's got to be a gremlin in there because that if that's the old forecast, it's got to be a gremlin. Baba Booey says, when am I going to take down the Christmas tree? I'm not taking it down.
You're
We've
not
had this,
taking.
right? We had this conversation. I was going to actually, I didn't. Maybe tomorrow I'll do it, but I put up my train set underneath the Christmas tree because my grandsons, when they come, they'll get to see my trains, and I also have them. I have a setup on my top of my kitchen cabinets and I have a project that I want to do around this room. But one of these days you might be shocked. You may see a train going around near the ceiling, but we'll see. But I decided to leave the tree up so that when my grandkids come over, they can leave with the feeling that every time they go to Pop Pop's house, it is Christmas, and that kind of works for me. So, anyhow, let's get back to what we're doing weather-wise and with respect to what's coming up. And more than a few people have asked me why we're not going to be getting any snow. And what I did was I pulled up a couple of soundings. This sounding is actually from the model run from 24 hours ago, and this is the GFS forecast for 1 a.m. on Friday. Okay, and it's a profile of the atmosphere. We can see the temperature and dew point. If you look on the upper left, there's a green line and there's a red line. And you'll notice that they join together at the 200 millibar level, which is way up. Okay. I mean, way up there, over 25,000 feet. And they're together all the way down, Joe. This is a very saturated atmosphere. Look, I mean, really, we've seen drier atmospheres at the higher levels and still got precipitation. This is this is saturated all the way up. And what to look at is I put in blue, which is the diagonal line that goes from the upper right corner downward. That is the freezing line. So that shows you the freezing line as you go up in height. And if you
We
follow
need those maps, Joe.
oh, I'm sorry. Thanks for telling me. I thought I switched it. I guess I didn't. I mishit the button. Okay, there's your
All
sounding
right,
map.
folks.
So there you
Here's your
go.
technical problem here.
All right, and just give it a few seconds to play catch up. So there's your sounding map, and I'll even move the let me move the Omni thing to the top so that that's right there in the upper corner so you can see. So I kind of marked off a few things. And if we look at the profile of the atmosphere, this again is for 1 a.m. Friday morning. At that the GFS run was very cold. It's got this cold air just plunging down, and I took the point. I tried to center it right near New York City. So it has a temperature of an air temperature of 29. Okay, for 1 a.m. Friday, and based on the new guidance,
Right.
it's not going to be there. It's going to be higher, but it's 29. And you'll notice that as we go up in height, and I marked off various heights here. I kind of just estimated. On the next map, I actually went on Google and found a millibar to feet calculator, and got the precise the precise numbers. Then I rounded them off. But we've got the 850 millibar level, or as it turns out, it's at 4,000 feet. And the 700 millibar level, as it turns out, is at 7,800. And then, of course, you've got the higher up, the 18,000 feet at about 500 millibars. So uh, notice that when you get up to not that far up, maybe about 3,000 feet, the temperature goes above freezing and stays above freezing well up to about 6 or 7,000 feet. So if you have precipitation falling, it's going to fall. It's going to be as it's going to fall. Probably start forming up at around maybe 10 or 12,000 feet. So it might initially, very briefly, start off as snow, and then it's going to fall into this warm layer and melt. And then when it gets down to that lower level, bottom 3,000 feet, if the distance isn't long enough, it won't refreeze, and you wind up with a super cooled raindrop, and you get freezing rain. So that's the
And fled weather took the words right out of my mouth. That's known as the warm nose,
the
if
warm
you will.
nose. Correct.
Yes.
Yes, the warm nose. Now this is from uh, this is also I took this. Oh no, this is the same one. Let me find the other one because the other one I did it a little better. Hang on a second. Let me get the other sounding. Sounding. Don't tell me I messed up. Oh, maybe it's down here. No, it can't be down here. This is. Let's see. There must be that one. Let's see if that's the one. Oh, yeah, here's the one, this one. So I did this one a little differently when I went it through the calculator. Shows it a bit better. Just also, this will illustrate to you how shallow the cold air is. So this one is for a point just south of, just maybe like Staten Island, okay? Uh, that's look. I think that's where I put the dot. Whatever 40.64, 73.99 west is. And this was off the 12Z run. And now this is for 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. And it has a temperature there, a surface temperature of 25. So if it's precipitating, it's going to freeze, whatever it happens to be. Now you'll notice on this map, your freezing line, and I didn't draw the blue freezing line, but you can see where the zero is. At the very bottom, where it says temperature just above the P, you see there's a zero, and the dash line that goes up on a diagonal to the right. That's your freezing line. So we're starting out at 25, and then notice once you at 30, about 3,900 feet, you go above freezing. Not by a lot, but you go above freezing, and you stay above freezing until you get to 7,900 feet. And then it goes below freezing after that. On the side here, just to the right of the edge of the box of the sounding itself, you'll see the wind barbs, and you'll notice that in the bottom 3,900 feet, the wind barbs are actually north and northeast. In fact, there's a northeast wind at 30 knots, Joe, at about say 975 millibars or so. So, and then it shifts to west and west southwest once you get above 3,900 feet. So there's your overrunning. You have very shallow cold air, and it's only 4,000 feet thick. Then you get into a little warm nose, and then it goes back below freezing after that. Now, as the day wears on, we're going to see the warm nose disappear. At that point, excuse me, at that point is where you could wind up seeing maybe some snow at the end. And you'll notice on the map above, at least off how the GFS has it modeled, you see where it has the snow. So this is what the profile of the atmosphere is. The other thing that I was watching, and I mentioned this earlier, that I think is very important, that very cold high to the north. And this map is valid for 1 a.m. Friday morning. This was from the overnight run of the GFS from last night when the frontal boundary was way to the south. And you see the waves. I drew the L's for waves, the waves of low pressure, the little ripples. And as each one of those waves moves along, the front buckles, you get precip. And then when the low passes, the cold front gets pushed a little further southeast, setting up the next one. And that wave in North Carolina that I have, that'll be the last one of the bunch that'll move through later tomorrow afternoon. But as each one goes by, it pulls down that colder air. The cold high to the north is going to build eastward toward Montreal and northwestern Maine. So you've got this strong northeast flow of very cold air coming in from Newfoundland and points north, right over Maine, right over New England. So the key to this forecast, Joe, to me is very simple. Is one of these waves going to buckle just enough to get that front to push a little further south, in which case the cold air, there's a difference. If the cold air stops at New York City, it's all north and west in terms of the icing. All right, we don't really want anybody to get icing, but that's where the line stops is where the line stops. But the GFS would have you believe that the cold air is going to drain all the way down south of Philadelphia into Delaware, into eastern Maryland, and even into the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. And you and I, by the way, have both seen instances where models have not done well with big highs up to the north like this, where you have
No.
this bitter cold air. It's overpowering. We saw what happened in the early January with that first snowstorm for the mid-Atlantic states where the dry air just shut all the snow off. It's very overpowering. We saw what happened on Saturday where the temperatures dropped far faster
Oh
than what
God,
was being
you're
modeled.
right.
You know,
You're right.
granted, there was a big storm to pull that cold air down. Once it intensifies, we don't have that here. But in this case, the high is the stronger animal. So we're going to rely on these little weak waves to just kind of buckle and see what they do. But this is what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with upper airs so much. We're not dealing with upper troughs and whether they're going to cut off or not cut off, or if the storm is going to intensify or not intensify. In many ways it's simple, and in other ways it's complicated.
Well, it's just like one of my one of the people I used to work with, um, who went to Penn State University to get his degree in meteorology. And Penn State generally is considered to be the college, by the way. Any of you young people who are considering taking up meteorology. I mean, Joe and I, we went to City College here in Manhattan, more or less because it was convenient for us because we were living in the Bronx. But I mean, if you don't mind, if you want to, end up, going out to central Pennsylvania, that is the place. And the person I was working with said that he had a professor who used to refer to it as used to refer to setups as this, as he always said, watch out for the big high, watch out for the big cold high. In fact, my friend used to refer to it, since the professor was rather up there in years. He said, "Yeah, I call it the old man's high."
Yeah.
because and it's true. It is absolutely true. We all, those of you especially who have your eyes on a storm and are looking for the potential for a major winter weather maker, you have your eye on the storm. You really should have your eyes sometimes on the high, the cold high, because that plays sometimes an even greater role in winter systems such as what we're looking at right now. You're absolutely right, Joe. These cold highs, they're not only cold and the layer of cold air is shallow, but they're also, cold air is very heavy. And so this cold air kind of oozes, if you will, southward or southbound. And we'll be looking for that oozing effect, if you will, for Thursday night into Friday, and how it plays into what we get here in the tri-state metropolitan area. Now, I have to say one thing. I mentioned the fact that the people in Albany and also at the Weather Service office in New York don't make much out of what we may see Thursday and Friday. they might be looking actually at what the people at the Weather Prediction Center are putting out. Joe, they don't have they're keeping all the significant snow on their probabilities to our north, and they're not really playing in so much with any kind of significant or dangerous amount of icing
At least not yet.
for Thursday night and Friday.
At least not
Not
yet.
yet,
Yeah.
anyway. But again, what's going to play into this will be that big strong high and how cold it is and how far south it gets. And so we're at just the beginnings of what my late grandfather, my Italian grandfather, would say. We're getting ready to factor in the agita factor
Right.
because I foresee in the next 24 to 48 hours nothing but agita as I'm looking at the new numbers and the new runs of the model guidance
Hey,
and trying to
listen.
figure out what the heck's going to happen Thursday night, Friday.
Freezing rain is nothing to fool around with. I mean, we saw what happened with that patchy freezing rain that came in. What was it, a couple of weeks ago, that put down what, a couple of hundredths, and there were hundreds of car accidents everywhere. Highways shut down in and around New York City because of it. So believe me, this is not something to root for, and you certainly don't want to get into a situation where you start talking about ice accretion, ice accretion amounts of a quarter of an inch, half an inch, three quarters of an inch. I mean, we're not going to see top numbers like that, obviously, but we can still wind up with some places, depending on how the overrunning sets up and the timing of the cold air. Maybe somebody winds up with a tenth to a quarter of an inch, and you know what? That's a problem, and that is that makes for risky travel, dangerous travel, and something that you need to pay attention to. Shraggy Stern hitting super chat tonight. He says, "Is there any chance for a nice few inches of snow in Rockland County out of this?" I have to tell you, the snow that's being showed by the models, particularly the GFS, up until very recently, was way overdone on the southern end as far as I see.
Yeah.
So unless the only way that you wind up with more snow at the end of this is if the last wave is a little slower and maybe just a little bit deeper, and that buys you some time, and you get perhaps a slightly more robust precipitation shield. Then perhaps somebody could put down an inch or two or a few inches. But I don't really see a whole lot of upside. I think the real emphasis on this is going to be the freezing rain and how much of it, which we don't know, how far south is it going to get, which we don't know. And by the way, neither of us are ashamed of saying, we've worked in weather between this for over 80 years, and it's not often that we have certitude, except on days when we know it's going to be partly to mostly sunny, and even then we always keep our fingers crossed at least on one hand. So understand that we're just being honest. A forecaster who tells you definitively that this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and there's no chance of it being wrong, especially when we're talking about something. If we're talking about something like tonight or tomorrow, that's one thing. But if we're talking about something that's still three days away or more, no, there's got to be some room for, there's got to be some latitude here to maneuver. So we're just being straight up. And by the way, that brings up another thing I wrote down because I wanted to make this point, Joe. As far as you and I are concerned, in this particular area here in the Northeast, we don't get freezing rain situations very often. So our forecast
Right.
experience is very limited. If you live down south where they actually do get more ice storms than they do anything else, and it's a bit more common, then it's a different story. But in New York, in the coastal plain in the Northeast, more often than not, when you get freezing rain, you might get it in the transition over to plain rain. It's not often that we get setups like this where you got cold air coming down and overrunning, and that you're looking where you're going to have a prolonged period of freezing rain. So when your forecast experience is limited on something, well, it doesn't help you it'd be nice if you had a library of of the experiences in your brain that you can go back and sort of look at and say, okay, I remember this is very similar to what happened on such and such a date. But there have been so few of them in my time that it's hard for me to even remember the ones that we have had.
It's true. We do not see very often icy conditions. We more often than not, when we do get into a winter weather pattern, we normally are talking about snow. Ice is something that doesn't happen too often, and when it does, it always seems to sneak up on us, Joe. Case in point, which you mentioned some weeks ago when we had that case of icy conditions, and it really wasn't a whole heck of a lot of ice. It was just a very thin coating, and those are probably the worst of all. When you have a very, very thin, I can remember the worst ice situation I ever drove in when I was back on Long Island. I went out, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and my driveway, I couldn't even see the ice. All I saw was glistening. It was glistening,
Yeah.
a very, very light, it was a very, very light freezing drizzle. And I said, oh, no problem. I can go through this. This is no big deal. Was I wrong? I must have slept. And I actually did a complete figure, not a figure eight, but turned completely around on the Northern State Parkway, one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever had trying to get to work that early that morning. So yeah, we don't often, and it's not that I'm not that you're saying or I'm saying that we're out of practice, that we don't, because we don't see this too often, but it is kind of unusual, and that's why what we're looking at here for Thursday night Friday looks like even 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 a slight icing situation, and that again could be the absolute worst of all. We're talking about, well, we're not in the quarter of an inch of ice accretion, so that means that we're not going to have any real problems or any major. Wrong. Sometimes even the thinnest little bit of ice could be the absolute worst. And what I'm seeing here means that we could be seeing this under the cover of darkness Thursday night into Friday morning. You wake up on Friday morning, folks, turn on your radio to get the traffic report. You may very well be hearing about innumerable people slipping, sliding, accidents every which way. Again, not precisely evident now, or we can't give you precise details now, but keep that in the back of your mind. And the saddest part about this is, to me, Joe, is that tomorrow and Thursday especially, with the rain that we're expecting on Thursday and the fog helps to get rid of a lot of residual snow and ice.
Right.
I'm not saying that we're going to get rid of all of it, obviously, but you get rid of a fair amount, and you say, so good, we're on our way to getting back to normal. And then all of a sudden, Thursday night and Friday, woof, we have a coating of ice on top of that melting
Right.
snow, and it's going to make it difficult. And the rain that falls on Thursday and Thursday night, then we get into the colder air, freezes. That in itself could cause lots of patchy areas of black ice on the roadways.
Right.
What can I say? Now you know why I was not in such a great mood when we came on, because all afternoon long I'm thinking and looking at these maps and saying to myself, as again to quote my grandfather, "Oofa, here we go
Yes.
with the end of the week."
Well, we have the 18Z. Actually, this is the 12Z European, but we might as well look at the in between run since we have it. And by the way, in case you are a model checker and you haven't been on Tropical Tidbits in a while, this was just added very recently. The 18Z run in 3-hour increments. Now, I just want to let you know that that is not rain, obviously, going on in areas that we just said are going to get big snows. That is um, just rainfall, okay? Rainfall amounts. And the darker the green, the higher the amount. So this does not show uh, rain versus frozen precipitation, but we can follow it along in terms of what's happening here. And this is in 3 hourly increments. And notice through this is through Wednesday evening. We don't really have much going on. We probably start to get into some rain. This is at 4 a.m. on Thursday, and we're on the edge of some rain here. The frontal boundary by Friday evening, 10 o'clock, is right. If I follow the isobar, it's right there, just over or just south of New York City. Now, the issue is, does that just sit there? Is it going to buckle north because there's a little wave there in eastern Tennessee and maybe push a little bit further north during the early morning hours by a handful of miles? Or is the wave, maybe the wave is not there. Maybe there's a whole stretched isobar up there. Maybe there's a wave that'll get analyzed, say, over Chesapeake Bay. And then when that goes by, the front buckles a little bit to the south. Well, as it turns out, at least the way the European sees it, it kind of sags it to the south by Friday morning. And it is showing some of that darker precip there. So you're that whoever's below 32. And see, there's also another wave there in Western Virginia, southwestern Virginia. That is the last wave, and that will, as the frontal boundary shifts eastward, the last wave goes by. This is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, at this point, some of the colder air to the north aloft will be coming in, so maybe it changes over to some snow before it ends, and then it goes out. Of course, the further north and west you are in upstate New York, it's going to be less of, as we go up also into New England, the further north you go, the freezing rain becomes less of an issue. Then you get into an area that maybe there's some, more sleet than anything else, and then ultimately, we're talking snow, which was reflected by the snow forecast map amounts that we showed you of some places 8, 9, 10, 12 inches up in upstate New York, with even some locally higher amounts. And then it just turns colder and drier. This is as far as it goes with respect to the surface map on the European and the in-between run. It only goes to 90 hours. And if we look at the upper air, as I said, we don't really have any kind of deep upper trough. We actually do have a trough that's swinging into the lakes, but this is our upper air pattern at the moment. We're kind of in a ridge position here in the east, and this is very warm air aloft. And going into Thursday night and Friday, all we have is a southwest flow that goes from Texas all the way up to Maine. And the low levels are the different story. The low levels are going back to the surface. Again, it's watching the high, which is kind of pushed off to the top of the map, just off the top of the map, but it's there. Watching that high in eastern Canada and how much cold air winds up bleeding southward. And the European has actually been kind of, except in this last run where it really didn't change very much from the prior run. The earlier run today at 12Z, the 12Z run, which is the run based on data at 7 a.m., that run was actually a colder run from its previous runs, and wasn't it wasn't quite as cold as the GFS, which I'm going to show you now, but it was much more in line with the GFS than it was with, say, the Canadian model, which was still, and to a lesser extent, the NAM, which was keeping the frontal boundary to our west through most of this event and only brings it through at the very end, where you might get, a little bit of freezing rain and then maybe a few snowflakes, and that's the end of it. Bless you. So the GFS here, on the other hand, says it's all about the high pressing down. You see that wave there Friday afternoon sitting off the coast of Long Island, and all that. This is Friday morning at 7 a.m. Freezing rain, Connecticut, northern New Jersey, New York City. The boundary line looks like it runs from about Staten Island to Trenton, and that freezing rain goes all the way down into southeast and south central PA, and even into parts of West Virginia and extending down into Kentucky. Snow in northeast PA, far northeastern PA, say north and west of Pike County, going westward, and then through upstate New York and the Catskills, say from Sullivan County north and west. But that wave buckling then brings the front through. So now suddenly at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you got freezing rain all the way down to almost to Atlantic City in New Jersey. Very large area of freezing rain, extending also, by the way, not to forget the folks south of Boston, from southeastern New England to Rhode Island, and in through much of Connecticut. And then, of course, finally, as that last wave kicks out and the front finally goes offshore, then we say goodbye to that, and high pressure builds on in. Now, before everybody gets excited for the snow lovers, I just want to show you here, I mentioned this earlier, we'll go back to the 12Z run. You'll see that area there in the southeast. It was actually a low near getting ready to go past Charleston here, with a high up in Maine. The high goes to Nova Scotia. Cold air tries to dam southward into Pennsylvania and points south. The low, this was a tight little intense low that the GFS played with on the 12Z run, and actually produced 6 to 10 inch snows on the guidance from southeastern PA, parts of eastern Maryland, almost all of New Jersey, into New York City, Long Island, and southern New England. The amounts were a little bit less, but still, it was a significant snowfall from this. But as I said earlier, also the upper air uh, on on uh, on the GFS is a little suspect in my view, because if we look at the upper air on this, there's this. It's got this trough that comes out, Joe. Look at it. It goes negative down in West Virginia and Kentucky, and it lifts right up. But there's a short wave behind it, and I think what happens is, in reality, which is what the other models are saying, is that that short wave, instead of maybe helping to lift it up, actually winds up kicking it out. And that's what the most recent run, the 18Z run, keeps the storm offshore. In fact, that short wave, you know, weakens. It just kind of gets ejected. Right, you see it right there. It's not quite as vigorous here. It goes negative, but it begins to just sort of flatten out as it reaches the coastline, and then it's almost all but disappeared once it's off the east coast. So uh, that's what all the other models are doing, and now the GFS is looking like it wants to go the same way. That doesn't mean it might not come back, but I will tell you that this is the first time this has been on here for a few days. And that was, Joe, the first time that I even looked at it, okay, in terms of the upper air. All I did was see it at the surface. I have this rule that when there's a storm in play, uh, I only deal with things one at a time. Sorry about that.
Right.
I just accidentally hit a switch button to give our friends at Omni True Value Hardware an extra plug, which they deserve. Um, no, I want to go back to the map because I want to just let's do a little bit of long range here, and then maybe we could do Le Plumes. Maybe we can get some temperature.
Joe
I'm sorry, hang on, Joe. Let me
Joe
just.
Lopresti Joe Lopresti put on the chat where Joe Rayo doesn't like the 18Z. That man knows me very well, doesn't he? And on Super Chat, thank you to Eric P, Brandon Doherty. We already mentioned Shraggy Stern and Mark Bogret, I believe is how you pronounce the name. Thank you all for hitting Super Chat during the last 15 minutes or so.
Hang on, folks. I'm trying to fix this. I hit the wrong.
You must really like Omni to give them all this
Oh,
extra
there we go.
coverage here.
No, I'm just having a.
And there,
I'm having
and
a bit
there's
of a
me.
rough time. I'm just having a bit of a rough time. Yeah, there's you. Hang on one second here. I gotta. That was one little technical mistake I made, and it sort of cascaded into like 7 of them. Good, I got it back. I also have a mouse
Yeah.
that's kind of on the loose side, so if I'm not careful, I accidentally click it. It's very delicate. It's a delicate mouse. All right, let's look at the long range. Because as I said, as we mentioned earlier, to me the long range offers opportunities and chances, and I am a firm believer in. For me, I rather look at the upper air because the surfaces that translate off the upper airs sometimes can get a bit ridiculous, and I don't want to even go down the road of when it starts showing storms at 240 hours or so, because 99 times out of 100 it's not going to be there, or if it is, it's going to be someplace else, or much weaker, or sometimes even much stronger. But just looking at the overall upper air profile, Joe, there's there's a, this is turning out to be different than what was advertised back maybe 10 days ago, where we saw this deep trough in the west and a big ridge in the east. And now here we are in the long range looking instead at a cutoff high sitting off the coast of Washington and Oregon and another deep trough. Now, I will tell you this, that the models for about the last, say, 6 days, maybe 5 days, have been focusing around the time frame of February 11th to the 14th, and
Right. I know what you're talking about.
every run has had this deep trough, and in fact, on a couple of runs, it sort of looked like what we just went through. So nothing in weather ever repeats exactly, but there's always a rhymeness to the patterns when they set up. uh, they look alike. And once again here in the long range, we actually have something showing up around the 11th, what looks like a sharp trough in the eastern part of the United States, and then a follow-up trough that comes along around the 13th, 14th. Now it's not quite as deep, but it's there. And then there's another one right behind that. So we also have the west where it's not bad looking. Okay, there's certainly no trough in the west. There's more ridging than anything else. In fact, there's a huge upper high in the northern part of the Gulf of Alaska. So I think that that's going to make for a negative East Pacific oscillation. You've got plenty, you got that cold flow out of northwest Canada. We're almost on the long range here, Joe. We're halfway through the month, more than halfway through the month, and we still have what looks like a really cold looking pattern overall going through the month of February. I think they're going to have a really tough time getting the pattern to flip where the eastern part of the United States is going to have above normal temperatures for a long, for any length of time looking at this.
I agree with you. I agree with you. As I said about 5 or 10 minutes ago, I said, where is it? I mean, like, I know that, some were saying, oh, don't worry about it. We get into February and take a look. And they showed the CPC Climate Prediction Center map for February, and they had much of the eastern seaboard, not just barely into, but I mean, it looked like there was going to be a significant warming trend for February. I don't see that. And by the way, that time frame that you're talking about, February 11th through the 13th or whatever, with each passing run, that upper low, that shortwave, gets progressively deeper and digs a little bit further south with each run. It really is getting, quite interesting. What is that? Yeah, and let me put it this way: if it digs any more, you might want to consider you might want to consider some kind of a significant development taking place just off our shorelines around the 11th or 12th of February. That's going to be something. That'll be a time frame to watch. I know we're only one day into February, but as I've been saying, the maps with each run has been making more and more out of that upper system for the 11th through the 13th in the northeastern part of the country.
And by the way, one of our favorite forecasters, Joe, Mrs. Ann Sambles. You know Mrs. Ann Sambles, right?
Ann Sambles.
Right, Ann Sambles. She's a great forecaster. She puts out maps. She's got 16 or 17 different members. Okay?
Right.
I mean, no one elongs a trough better than Mrs. Ann Sambles. Well, she even has it. If you look at what I'm referring to is the ensembles, the GFS ensembles or the Canadian ensembles. I'm not a fan of the ensembles in general. I find that when you use something that's based on averages, that you're going to wind up having average results. And I'm not the sort of person that really likes to have average results. I'd like to, maybe beat the averages. But I do look at them from time to time. And I happened to look at them today, and I noticed that a couple of things about them. One is that they have the trough in the east and the ridge in the west for the entire 16-day period, for one thing. So there's at least the ensembles support the fact that this pattern that we're in is going to want to continue. Maybe the occasional day or two where little ridge pops up in the east and we see temperatures moderate. And the other thing was the fact that there are opportunities that come down with troughs running around. Look, the best thing that can happen from the standpoint of the long-term GFS when you look at it is when you look at it and for 16 days it shows nothing. Because you and I both know, Joe, that it is very rare in these parts of the United States for us to go 16 days without seeing something happen, even if it's weak cold fronts going by. Something.
Right.
We don't go 16 days sitting in just high pressure and no precip. So when the GFS shows nothing, but instead what you look for is that you look for the general upper flow and the upper pattern. And you can look at it and you can say, you know what, it may not be showing anything, but this is the kind of pattern where something will show up somewhere. And that's That's how I see it. And again, look at that date around that time frame, say around the 11th to the 14th, somewhere in there. Lincoln's birthday, Valentine's Day. I think there's a window of opportunity for something to happen in that time frame. And you know what? I'm not going to bring them up on the screen because they're a real pain in the neck to maneuver on that site. Oh, now you know what? So I'm going in, I'm writing I'm writing in the search box on my web browser, Joe, because I want to bring up the SREF, and I actually wrote the plumes. Silly me, silly me. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still
Okay.
with you. I'm letting you, take over.
Why? Why?
Because there's nothing. You cover all the bases. There's not much more for me to add except just to shake my head and agree with you.
Oh, don't say
Uh,
that. You make me feel bad.
I mean, but however, I will say this, and I made this discovery over the weekend. Um, I have been watching the Honeymooners for over 60 years now, and I didn't notice until this past Sunday night that in the episode of when the raccoons put on a play and Ralph thinks he's going to be discovered by Philip J. Whiteside, the big
Right.
Hollywood producer. I didn't realize until Sunday night that Philip J. Whiteside was played by the same actor who played Andre, the interior decorator for Morgan's department store. I said, "Wait a minute, that face looks familiar." You can see where my mind was on Sunday night after shoveling all that snow and dealing with all that cold weather.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
By
just
the
thought I'd throw that out to all of you Honeymooner
There's a
fans.
number of characters up.
That
There's a number of characters that show up playing, the same actors playing different parts. Um,
right,
yeah, this was like a bunch of regulars that they did. Now, just looking at the SREF, because
right,
the only thing we're going to really get out of this, Joe, is I'm just looking at the 3-hour temperatures. I'm just noticing that, for example, islip doesn't get below freezing until after 1 o'clock on Friday. The I got Let me get White Plains. White Plains goes below freezing probably around 8 or 9 in the morning. Poughkeepsie Poughkeepsie goes below freezing actually around 7 a.m. I'm sorry, around 2 or 3 a.m. And by morning, the mean temperature is 29. Now, also to be just to be cautious here, the spread on the SREF. For those of you who don't know what the SREF is, there's 26 different let's call them members or submodels of the SREF. Each one has a different parameter or two, and they they run them all, plot them on a map, show you where the plots are, and they take an average. And I actually can, now that I have one of them up on the screen, I can show you. We'll show you what it looks like, and we've had them on the. We've used these before. They're just a little bit cumbersome to handle when you're trying to do a show and set up these kind of maps, these kind of graphics at the same time. But the black line, and there's different parameters across the top. You can total QPF, in other words, the quantitative precipitation forecast, total snow, 3 hourly snow. I'll punch those up in a moment. But this is the temperature, the actual 2 meter temperature, and the uh, right about. Let me get my right here. So right here, this line here, that is 7 a.m. on Friday. So we're looking at Poughkeepsie, and there's a map on the bottom where you just kind of click on the dots. So the black line is the average, and each one of the members is plotted in these thin, different colors lines that you see. And notice that just as many are above the 32, just as many are above the mean as there are below the mean. Actually, there's more below the mean toward the end. It's just that there's two of these members, and this is where you have to be careful. There's there's two of these members that are still sitting up around 50, so that's going to
right.
skew your average. I just noticed that. In fact, let me just bring iSlip up. I'll
That's
go.
the M. That's the That's the MBN2,
Right.
which I guess if we get rid of that, and the other one is what, the MBN2, and then there's the MBN5. Yeah, you
Right.
get
Is it
a few of these models
all right?
that are off the wall.
The NBN2. So I'm going to uncheck the NBN2. So it's the check before the box, and the NB. No, I just checked the MBP. Sorry, MBN6, MBN5, NBN2. And notice I took them off. Now iSlip, I guess because the wind is off the ocean, only the top numbers are only at 45, so that only moved the mean down a little bit. So we'll go to let's go back to Poughkeepsie. Now that I took those members off, yeah, it moved it. It moved it a little bit, but it really didn't move it a lot. But there's still no. There's this. I still got two members up at 50. It's the NBN2 and the NBN, like you said, and the NBN5. The NBN5. I thought I took those. That's the ones I took off. That's why I hate doing this. That's why I do not like bringing up the plumes because you go crazy. The total precip is 1.35 inches for Poughkeepsie. That's pretty fair. That's a lot. And
And according to the plumes, Poughkeepsie does not go below freezing from about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning until just before daybreak on Friday morning. That's a long stretch of above freezing. Add in now the rain, and of course also the fog, and you can see that there's going to be a fair amount. I mean, not, as I said, all of the snow, but a fair amount of the snow is probably going to go bye-bye thanks to all of this. And then we have to top it off come early Friday morning with the potential for some sleet, ice, and maybe a touch of snow. So it's like we take two steps forward and then we take three steps back, so to speak.
correct.
If you don't like snow or ice. So
Right. All right. So anyway, it is now 9:03 Eastern Time, so we went a solid hour and a half, which is not too shabby since we weren't on the last 2 days. It's amazing. I could not speak the English language, Joe, when we got to last week on Thursday. I was having so much trouble completing sentences. My thoughts, just trying to get my thoughts together, was such a struggle because you get brain fried. After a while, you've seen so many maps, they all start looking the same, and I had enough. So I needed the time. No, I'm sorry, Saturday, Friday and Saturday were our 2 extra days last week, and see, I haven't even completely recovered. I'm throwing days of the week like they're nothing. I made that mistake earlier in the show, thinking that today was Wednesday. Now I'm making a mistake going backwards. It's fun getting old.
and we didn't even mention, I think, once this entire show, the fact that tomorrow is Groundhog Day, Joe.
Yes, and I have a wonderful recipe for groundhog. You just preheat your oven, your oven to 350 degrees. You season it well, and then just throw it in there and let it cook at 20 minutes a pound. And you can find that recipe,
And
by the way, on the internet. Just Google groundhog recipes. They're all over the place.
the prediction made by the groundhog, according to our dear friend Norm Devoskin, is the forecast.
Yeah.
And according also to Norm, if Punxsutawney Phil comes out tomorrow morning and sees his shadow, we'll have 6 more weeks of winter. If, however, Punxsutawney Phil comes out and he sees Punxsutawney Phyllis, we'll have 6
Six
more
more weeks of
groundhogs.
dogs. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Ta-da!
God bless Norm Devoskin. Oh, yeah, the champion of jokes and puns. He's very good at that, and we wish him well. We wish him all the best. So I think it's time. Oh, by the way, we should mention uh, the chairman Scott Briller asked me. I have it here someplace. He's out today, and he might be listening or watching. It's just hang on a second. I don't think he's watching because then he'd be on the chat board. But he asked me to share a statistic. So just give me a moment while I find it. And anyhow, I'm getting it. So just everybody be patient here. Here we go. Da 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 da. Filler music, Joe. Filler music.
Yeah. Well, as I said, sometimes on Channel 5, way back in the day when they had technical problems, they'd always play a piece from Bert Camford. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Or
That's
Sandy, or it's or known as the song that became known as Sandy's theme because it was used by Sandy Becker. I think it was um, dun 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 bum 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 dun 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 bum 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 dun 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 dun.
so I got it
Well,
here.
anyway,
And actually, this also reminded me. I wanted to bring this up this other subject by the way, real quick. But first off, he says since 1869 in Central Park, there have been 37 snowstorms of 12 inches or more. 35 of the 37 in those of 35 out of 37 of those winters wound up with above average snowfall, and the average winter snowfall of those 35 was 45 inches. So usually in winters when you go above normal, you're going to wind up doing it with one big snowfall, at least one big snowfall in the mix. Now, the city, I think when you combine, there was the snowfall was over 2 days, Joe. So I think it was, wound up being just shy of not around 9 inches. But there is something I want to bring up. I don't know if you looked at this. I did. Because I was very curious about what the snow ratios were, but given that the temperatures fell as fast as they were, I'm going to tell you that these numbers have to be wrong. I don't know if you looked at them, but so Islip got they wound up with 24 inches roughly. They only measured 6/10 of an inch of liquid, which means that the ratio was 40-1.
oh, get out
Boston,
of here.
wait, yeah, Boston's even better. Boston got 23 and change, and they set their daily all-time snowfall record, which I would have thought it was higher, and that New York City's daily snowfall forecast record is higher than Boston. I was a little surprised at, but they set their daily record. They only measured 4/10 of an inch, so their snow ratio was 60-1. Now, I looked at New York City's Central Park. They actually had a snow ratio that was less than 10-1. They measured 9/10 of an inch of liquid, and it was 8.3. Now I'm remembering. It was 8.3 was the total snowfall, and they measured 9/10 of an inch of liquid. So that means that they're at the snowfall ratio, the average. And you know what? They did get some of their snow came the night before and before the temperatures really dropped off the wall. Whereas Long Island snow and points east, it was for the most part after the temperatures dropped down below 20. But I noticed that every single station, when I went to look at their 3-day weather history, they all were missing the 6 hourly precip amount that was inside that period where it was snowing. So I just wonder if there was some kind of data, some kind of outage. Maybe everybody's tipping bucket. I don't know if they still use tipping buckets, but everybody's tipping bucket froze. But every station was missing, and I can't believe that the liquid precip amounts that were being forecast by the models were off by 50 to 75%. I could accept maybe 20 or 30%, but it's hard for me to kind of accept that they were off by 60 or 70%. So I'm just wondering if there was some kind of data outage that involved a whole bunch of stations that might have been hooked up to some similar communications network at that time, and that data wound up not getting transmitted or getting lost in the sauce. I don't know, but it just seems I can't buy a 60-1 ratio, and I can't buy a 40-1. I just can't.
No, I can't either. My bucket, I have one of those Davis weather stations, and when it snows, it never records liquid precipitation until probably the following day, when the snow in the funnel, so to speak, has begun to
Melts.
melt, and it melts ever so slowly. And so it does it like in increments. Like I might get 2/10 of an inch the day after a snowstorm, and then maybe another 3/10 of an inch the following day or whatever. It takes its sweet time in melting and dripping or sinking into the little tipping spoon, if you will, to
Right.
record liquid. But I never get. Let's put it another way. I never get accurate liquid precipitation readings after a snowstorm up here. I've never have, and I don't think I ever will. But I agree with you though. 40 to 1 is a little bit pushing the envelope. We were talking about maybe it might be 15 or 18 to 1 because it was so cold on Saturday, but that's pushing it when you start talking about 30 or
Yeah,
40 to
there's
1.
I'll accept 20 to 1. And if you pay me $100, I might accept 25 to 1, but I'm not going to. No, I'm not accepting 40 or Boston with the 60 to 1. Timothy Veltman told me about that one. He's one of our regulars here. And also want to wish Scott Briller, who we lovingly call the chairman. His mom isn't feeling well, and he's home taking care of his mom. So we want to say hi to Mother Briller and hope that she she gets ready to go ice skating, because I know she likes to ice skate.
Right. So we've been going at it now, Joe, for one
Well,
hour and 43
45.
minutes.
Yes, we are. So you know what? Let's say goodbye. We had a nice audience tonight. Thank you, everybody, for this. You thank them. I'm always thanking them. You say goodbye tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We still have 425 people watching, so we're gonna cut you all loose right now, let you go, and we will be back tomorrow when hopefully we'll have a better sense as to what may hit us Thursday night and Friday. And thanks to all for hitting the super chat tip jar: David Fuller, Lou Guru, Trish Sparaccio, Dave Fazino, Eric P., Brendan Doherty, Shraggy Stern, Mark Broquette. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. But Joe and I thank you so very, very much.
Oh, and don't forget to thank the 348 people that hit the like button.
Thank you. Thank you indeed. 349 on my screen here, give or take a couple. But yeah, another long show, but another good show and lots of likes.
And I will see you tomorrow at what time, Joe?
7:30. I went through a whole can of Cactus Cooler tonight. So
Well, I had a cup of mostly decaf coffee and my water today, so I'm spent. So we'll see you tomorrow night, everybody, at 7:30 Eastern. Nighty night.
nighty night.